The streets of some of our cities, I think, do need cleaning up. Nobody could deny that. And I think there is, in fact, at the present moment, an injustice in the law so far as it concerns the private life of a certain number of men. And I think that the sooner that those two things, which are our two major recommendations, can be dealt with, the healthier the society and the surroundings of this country would be.
Sir John, if we may deal with prostitution first, are you and the committee out to abolish prostitution?
No, I don't think we are. I don't think you can. At any rate, you can't abolish prostitution by law. And I don't think we want to, because I think there is an area of a person's life which is not necessarily the concern of the criminal law. I think it's the business of the criminal law to preserve public order and decency, and to protect people who need protection, and to safeguard people against exploitation. But there is an area of a man's private morality and a woman's private morality which I don't think is the concern of the criminal law. And if you try to make it too much so, you do reduce the personal responsibility of the individual, which I don't think you want to do. So the answer is no, we're not.
Are you then out to clear the streets of London?
Oh yes, that's a very different thing. What we're really concerned to do, on the line of public order and decency, well, is to create a situation in which it should not be necessary for me, if I'm walking through London with my 15-year-old daughter, to make a detour to avoid particular streets. I don't see why I should have to. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make the streets of London and other big places fit for people to walk in.
How do you propose to do that?
Well, quite simply, by putting up the fines for soliciting. The present fine, as I expect you know, is 40 shillings. Well, that fine was first introduced 100 years ago, and 40 shillings 100 years ago is a very different thing from 40 shillings now. Increase the fines and graduate them upwards, even in the end making possible, as a maximum penalty, imprisonment.
By driving the women off the streets, you run the risk of increasing call girl rackets and similar organizations. Are you disturbed by that possibility?
Well, I'm afraid it's got to be faced. Again, we're not trying to abolish prostitution. We're not saying that people must never meet for this purpose. What we are saying is that they must not clutter up the streets when they're doing so. And if they invent other devices, well, we've got to face it.
Are you out to get at the men who are generally supposed to be behind the girls on the streets, the pimps?
Well, there is, of course, provision for that now. And some of our members in the report want to increase the maximum penalty for doing that. In real life, from our evidence, it turns out that really the girls themselves are very much more favorably disposed towards their pimps or ponces than the general public is.
Have you considered the question of licensed brothels, Sir John?
We have, and rejected it flatly.
Did any prostitutes give evidence before the committee, Sir John?
No, they didn't. They were asked, and they were invited, and we hoped that they would come, but they didn't.
Sir John, if we may now take the other topic your committee was concerned with, homosexuality, what changes in the law regarding homosexuals are you suggesting?
But could we be quite clear first that we're talking about homosexual offences? Because I think it's a distinction that we ought to keep between homosexuality and homosexual offences. The chief change we're recommending there is that homosexual behaviour between adult, consenting males in private should no longer be a criminal offence. It always has been until now, or at any rate it has for about 100 years, and the sense in that we don't see. That again goes back to my general principle that there are some areas of a man's private life which are not the concern of the criminal law, except insofar as they damage public order or result in exploitation.
If that suggestion is accepted and the law is changed, isn't there a danger that it may have repercussions on children, that these men may also go after children?
Well, from the evidence we've had, oddly enough, the opposite is what we should expect. Because on the medical evidence that we've had, it looks as if there are two quite different kinds of homosexual men. Those who prefer the company of their contemporaries and those who prefer young people, boys and it may be girls. And it could well be the case that by taking out of the criminal law homosexual behavior between adult consenting males in private, that may be a safeguard to boys and young people rather than the opposite.
Did you also consider the question of lesbianism?
Well, of course, that is not, curiously enough, inside the criminal law now. It's not an offence. So it was outside our terms of reference, and we saw no reason to bring it in.
Did any homosexuals give evidence before you?
Yes, they did, quite deliberately and of their own free will.
Do you personally feel that the recommendations made by your committee should pass into the law as quickly as possible?
Well, of course, I suppose that strictly is a matter for Parliament and not for me. But I should be very sorry if all that happened after this was that we got pigeonholed. The streets of some of our cities, I think, do need cleaning up. Nobody could deny that. And I think there is, in fact, at the present moment, an injustice in the law so far as it concerns the private life of a certain number of men. And I think that the sooner that those two things, which are our two major recommendations, can be dealt with, the healthier the society and the surroundings of this country would be.